Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. B. Nalani Butler, and I am here with Miss Kendra Bailey. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself. She is the Senior Coordinator of Facilities and Event Management at Kennesaw State University in Kennesaw, Georgia. So welcome. Thank you so much for having us here today. And can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you work, and your job title?
Okay. So, a little bit about myself. From Cleveland, Ohio. I've been in Georgia for about 11 years. I currently work in the Department of Sports and Recreation as a senior coordinator of facilities and events, um, where I oversee the majority of our facility staff, which is on the Kennesaw and the Marietta campus. So it's relatively close to about 100 student assistants, from facility managers to service desk attendants, as well as facility attendants, and a
Okay.
graduate of facilities and events. Graduate
Awesome.
assistant.
So you have two campuses. I didn't even realize that.
Yes,
So thanks for telling us.
absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you came to be in the position that you are today from college until now?
Yes. So, in undergrad, I was a student athlete. I played basketball, attended Tennessee State University, worked in campus recreation, which was a very small scale. Enrollment there is probably about 9,000. And so, obviously, with my background being in athletics, I've always had an affinity for recreation, and sports. So, let's see, after that, I worked in school age services for the YMCA in Nashville after graduating undergrad. Moved to Georgia, worked for LA Fitness International. Um, Started as an operations manager, again, just kind of trying to stay in that same realm of corporate wellness and health promotional, what have you. So, trying to stay in that realm. I started my master's when I was at LA Fitness. Always wanted to work in higher education. Always had a passion for working with young people. Was always serving as a mentee, a mentor, and really was able to get my foot in the door in higher ed by using my position at LA Fitness as kind of a baseline, and then working my way into this current role. This position was vacant. I was interested. I obviously applied. And so for me, it kind of goes hand in hand operationally with what I did at LA Fitness as an operations and an area manager. So, very easy transition, for me, just given my background in this field.
Very nice. So can you tell us just a little bit about your roles and responsibilities as the Senior Coordinator of Facilities and Event Management at Kennesaw?
Yep. So, as I indicated, I oversee a graduate assistant who assists with the student assistant staff that we oversee. Our facilities are primarily student run. So, at any point when you come into the facility, for the most part, you're going to see the students out front and center. They are the ones who our patrons deal with the most, as well as any guests, vendors, contractors who come through the facility. So, our job is obviously to equip and empower them to be able to have those conversations, to deal with the patrons on the front lines. Um, I'm also responsible for, assisting with training of them, their professional development and continued growth opportunities. Also oversee reservations in our facility. So that could stem from athletics to registered student organizations, Greek Panhellenic recruitment, benefits fair, career fair, and all of those things. So, just kind of working out the logistics of where those things will be set up, making sure that our staff are equipped and know where different components are: chairs, tables, podiums, electronic equipment in some of our facility spaces and things like that.
Nice. So just really all the sports facilities, right, that you all use recreation and sports facilities on the Marietta and the Kennesaw campus.
Yes.
Wow. So I do have a question based off of what you just told me. So working with students, I feel like there has to be a lot of turnover, right? Because they graduate, they go on to other things. So how is that with just the continuous transition?
That's an awesome question. I'm actually in the process of finalizing my dissertation, and because it had to be a change initiative, I decided to utilize the retention issue that we have in the department as a focal point to try to alleviate some of those concerns. Um, it is really difficult, especially because our staff are, because this is a high risk area, we're a lot different than other on-campus positions where some students are allowed to do homework or focus on other things, while they're just monitoring in an area. Our student staff are not permitted to do those things. And so because of that, and also because we do have minimum wage and because of some of the nature of our tasks, it's very difficult to maintain student staff. Generally, we try to look for different avenues and ways to engage them so that they are more prone or inclined to stay with us for longer periods of time. And then obviously the position that we have in student managers is kind of like what students kind of aspire to when they are working here. So those are just, some of the components that we use. Like I said, just engagement, making sure that we're continuously engaging and developing them, building stronger skill sets and transferable skills by providing some of those professional development opportunities. That's kind of one of the ways, or a few of the ways we try to combat the retention issue we have, aside from the fact that they are going to graduate and matriculate out of here.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. So you've told us a little bit about what you do. Can you just walk us through an average week and what that looks like for you? If there is an average week?
There's never an average week. It really just depends. A lot of fire putting out, a lot of scheduling and trying to make sure that right now, for example, we are dealing with accommodating tennis in our facility. And so because of COVID and all of the restrictions that athletics has, and because tennis is an outdoor sport, we've had to deal a lot with up and down. We can practice, we can't practice. We've got this COVID restriction, we've got that. This team can't come, that team can't come. So there's a lot of that sort of thing. Generally, I think for the most part, I do conduct evaluations with my staff throughout the month, specifically the managers. That takes up a good bit of time. Conducting meetings with the managers as well, incorporating some professional development with them on a weekly basis is always a focal point. Working with my GA, making sure that, she is growing and she's developing and getting the training and the skills that she needs. A lot of conduct meetings when it pertains to students who kind of go off the rails within the facility. Specifically, the mask mandate has been a challenge this school year. We understand it's very difficult for people to work out in masks. And so just getting them to understand, the system mandate behind the mask policy, going back and forth with students in that regard, dealing with equipment issue, budgets, ordering equipment, ordering personal protective equipment for our staff, making sure that, we are mitigating or minimizing the risks that go on in the facility. So just things that are laid out on the floor, a lot of walkthroughs, a lot of interacting with patrons just from, the perspective of some of their wants, their desires, and then a lot of our own interdepartmental programming and activity scheduling and trying to kind of fit all of those things into what other campus entities are looking for. So I'm kind of all over the place, working on manuals and things like that, standards that we can put into place so that we have a point of reference for different things. Lots of working with, collaborating with other departments on campus, university events and venue management. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It sounds like it. So
It
you
is.
definitely have your hands full.
For sure.
So you were telling us a little bit just about, COVID and how it's affected you. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on COVID-19 and maybe how it's affected like cleanliness and how your all's perspective has changed?
For sure. So, during the quarantine period, we do have a risk and safety um, work group in our department. And so we work with, I can't even think of the name of the department on campus offhand right now. It'll come to me. But at any rate, we did a lot of work with them. We met on a weekly basis trying to figure out exactly how we could minimize, the risk of exposure in our facilities. And so generally, prior pre-COVID, it was set up to where student assistants or patrons could come in at their leisure. We have had to go to a reservation system to minimize that. So we're allowing up to 120 participants in the facility at a time. The reservation periods are an hour and a half, so 90 minutes students have to work out, or faculty, staff, whomever. You go online, make a reservation. You have up to 90 minutes. When that reservation window is closed, we do require that they, exit the building, at which time we have a 30-minute cleaning window worked into the schedule. So the staff who are in the facility are responsible for wiping down all surfaces, and that includes, equipment, dumbbells, railings, cleaning doorknobs, bathroom, countertops, things of that nature that are like really high risk areas. And so they do a very deep cleaning for 30 minutes to make sure that, all of that potential contact equipment is clean for the next group of patrons to come in. We have put out more dispensers for our patrons. We use wipes in the facility. So we've got more wipe stands to minimize, again, the risk of exposure, and patrons are, they're in the habit now of definitely wiping down those surfaces before and after they use them. And then there's the mask mandate, which our student assistants, we've put more student assistants out on the floor to make sure that masks are being worn and are being worn properly by patrons who are using the facility. Even with the increase in the amount of like social distancing areas, we have spread out equipment, repurposed the basketball court. We use that for some cardio equipment just to ensure some proper social distancing and spacing. And then also we do have some classes that are going on in our buildings. And so we definitely make it a point to let our faculty members who are coming into the facility know, these are our standards. This is what's expected. Make sure that your participants or your class students are wearing masks, and that they remain on in these settings. And then also there are wipes in those areas for them to clean down those desks for this, in between classes as well.
Okay, wow. So thank you for keeping us all safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely have to check out. I'm new here, so I haven't been able to check out the facility. So I'll definitely have to do that.
Yeah.
So you did mention equipment and classes. How do you decide which type of equipment to purchase for the fitness center? And then also, how do you decide what classes that you're going to have?
Classes as in like our group fitness classes?
Correct.
Okay, so those are generally based upon the group X and personal training coordinators. So they kind of determine that based off of some feedback and benchmarking that they've done with the students to determine like what the needs are, what the wants are, what they want to see. And then also they, utilize numbers to kind of determine like how popular was this class? How unpopular was this class? How many participants are we seeing show up for this? They have also moved some classes to a virtual setting, so that way we don't have to have we've limited the amount of participants in the facility anyway. And so, like for example, our cycle classes that are in person, we are only accommodating up to 8 people, 9 with the inclusion of the instructor. And so that really minimizes the amount of participants that we have in there. And so I think that they decide those classes based off of benchmarking. And then you mentioned equipment. We order equipment pretty much to standard. A lot of back stock of dumbbells and things that are gonna obtain a lot of wear and tear. We want to be able to replenish those things and keep a lot of those dumbbells and plated weights on the floor. As far as like some of our specialty equipment, it really just depends. We could go from having like a speed bag that is up and running and it's great. And then all of a sudden somebody comes in and they take it out. And it's like, okay, now we got to order a speed bag. And, some things just depending on the price point, we don't necessarily keep in stock, but we do like to back stock a lot of the checkout equipment. So basketballs, volleyballs, jump ropes, soccer balls, things like that. We like to keep those back stock so that way we have them because those tend to be very popular items when the facility is like up and running at 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question to you, what do you enjoy most about your current role?
What do I enjoy most about my current role? I would say working with the students. It definitely comes with its challenges. I have been able to kind of become a mentee and build a mentor, excuse me, I keep saying mentee, mentor and maintain some relationships with some of the students who have matriculated through our department and graduated. Indirectly, like not on purpose, just really build some really quality relationships and connections with them, just seeing their growth, being able to support them in any regard that I can, and really understanding, that while this is a job and it's important for them to be here, to be prepared, and for us to be able to teach them some of those lessons, that they're people too, and that they have needs and that, they have shortcomings, and just really being empathetic to some of the challenges that they also face outside of work and school. So really just engaging with them, and especially in some capacities that might be outside of actual work, some of the activities that we do with them, we have some team bonding and building things that they really get into, and so those things are really fun. It's really beneficial for me to be able to be a part of the growth and development of the young people that we serve.
And I'm sure that they appreciate that. And for all the students that are going to be listening to this, Kendra, she's a great mentor and she values you. So, definitely look into working with her one day if you can. So going off of that, what is the toughest part of your current job?
I would also say working with the students has its, like I said, it has its challenges. I would say specifically, sometimes with the buy-in and trying to get them to understand, the logistics and the red tape that is student higher education, and a lot of misunderstandings as to why can't we do this? It seems so easy. It's difficult sometimes to explain those things, and to really get them to buy in and fully impress upon them, some of our limitations and things like that. I think also just in working with the patrons who use our facility and some of the conduct issues and concerns we have. Again, for me, trying to understand and empathize with them as people, but then also them taking advantage in that regard of facility rules and or not complying, and then having to report them, and those things that I really would prefer not to do and would want to minimize. But in some instances, hands are tied. This is not my rule. This is, facility or even higher than that in some instances. So again, some of those disciplinary tasks that are a little bit less fun, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, and just in dealing with the students who either work here or, utilize our facilities.
Okay, thank you. And so you work at a university, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the benefits to working at the university? I know that you mentioned you were getting your PhD, but what are some of the other benefits for any of the students that might want a similar position as you that could work in a university setting?
I would definitely say, even in my past history of working in recreation, campus rec as an undergrad student, um, I never knew that you could really work in this type of, like, even though, I had supervisors who worked in the setting, like, it's it's crazy that you can have a career in um, sports and recreation. I would say that the environment is generally very, not lax, but very laid back. It's fun to come to work. My day is never the same. I get to work with people all over campus, even at neighboring universities, be a part of cohorts, professionally develop myself as well as others, constantly learning, constantly evolving and growing. Um, and I think I really get to see a lot of different, learn a lot about a lot of different departments on campus and collaborate in some instances. There are a lot of work groups that I've been a part of, a lot of, you know, national searches for different positions that have nothing to do with sports and rec that I've gotten to be a part of. And so in that regard, you get to network with a lot of different people. Um, Obviously, there are healthcare benefits and you get your holidays and things like that and working in a university setting. But just, again, I think the major benefit is just the people and never really knowing, what type of connections you're going to make and some of the things that you actually get to be exposed to.
Okay, thank you. I think they'll really appreciate that. So my next question for you, athletes and activism was a big part of 2020. What are some of the things your organization is doing to, sorry, I don't know what happened there. I think I had an incoming call. So what are some of the things that your organization is doing to address these issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
So our department specifically has a competitive sports program. And so in partnering with NERSA, which is the, goodness gracious, they are the professional development entity that most sports and recreation departments are under at the university level. There are a lot of different things that we are looking at. So obviously we want to make sure that, we are inclusive of some of those um, diverse situations, whether it be includes in utilizing those opportunities for intramurals specifically, I can think of, instead of always doing, a male team, female team, doing, a team that is, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Yes, thank you. So just making, and that's with all of the sports that we offer through intramurals, as opposed to just, doing a co-ed basketball or whatever. I mean, if it's lacrosse, if it's swimming, if it's flag football, all of those opportunities we want to give for, co-educational opportunities for our students. I would say also just being cognizant of some of the, very open-minded and cognizant of some of those instances with some of our students who are participating in programs. We have looked into gender neutral restrooms. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but it is something that we are looking at because we want to make sure, again, that we are being inclusive. And that's definitely something that's on our radar. But I would say, I think at this point, to my knowledge, those are the only things that we have explored.
Okay. Well, no, that's, I mean, great that you could just tell us what you all are doing just to really keep pushing to be more inclusive and to be more diverse. And that makes me feel better as a professor because, we're always talking about diversity, inclusion, equity, all of that. So just for the students to see that in all the different sport organizations, I think that's really important. Mm-hmm. So you did mention NERSA, right? And that's the National Intramural and Recreational Sports Association. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know it's very important as far as, campus rec goes. And I don't think the students know about that. So that would be great if you could just tell us just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So NERSA is again, it's very inclusive of different sports programs and activities. We do a lot of, they provide a lot of baseline information for us as far as standards across at the university levels or just across um, the, I can't think today.
No worries.
I'm sorry. I'm
No,
trying to
we all
find.
have those days. I get it.
But yeah, so we rely very heavily on them. We actually have a annual conference coming up, and so we've got the annual conference, which is nationally recognized, and then we also have GERSA, which is specifically for the Georgia region, and then well for Georgia, and then we also have Region 2, which is for our specific region in Georgia. And so a little bit about it is, again, they provide a lot of baseline and a lot of support, a lot of statutes as it pertains to just normal operating. Um, they sponsor a lot of students for scholarships and things like that for those individuals who work in sports and recreation. Um, they do a lot of, tournaments and things like that for competitive sports programs. And honestly, I wasn't very familiar with this. I wish I had known about it earlier, but like there's a job board through there where you can look for graduate and research opportunities. You can look for professional opportunities through Bluefish Jobs, which is a NERSA job site or a search engine. Um, and it's just a really good resource for information. They are constantly just, researching, benchmarking, trying to establish new standards as it pertains to our ever evolving higher ed world, whether it's diversity and inclusivity or just how to navigate the job world, how to navigate finding a graduate opportunity, and just kind of putting some of those things out there that are sometimes difficult to find.
So you have it there, scholarships, job opportunities, all of that. So definitely for those of you listening, check out NERSA, all that. That's actually been a conference I've wanted to check out just because I know when I was a grad student, we had a lot of people that were graduate assistants and they would always talk about it and how much fun it was actually, but also how they were able to interview for jobs and all the great opportunities that they had and the connections. So my next question to you, what advice do you have for current students who would want to pursue the career path that you have chosen to pursue?
I would definitely suggest looking into opportunities with NERSA, especially graduate opportunities if you are, a graduating senior or looking to kind of transition out. Those opportunities are literal stepping stones. In most instances, if you're looking to work in higher ed or in this realm of sports and recreation, if you can find a graduate assistantship, you're almost guaranteed a job. And so I would definitely look into navigating some of those opportunities for, professional development and growth. Networking is always going to be a very big deal. I had my current graduate assistant worked as a facility manager. She graduated, went off last January, moved to Chicago, and ended up coming back because of COVID. And it just so happened that the graduate assistant that I had previously was, transitioning out. And so that opportunity opened up a big door for her. And so there are a lot of graduate opportunities out there. Again, Bluefish Jobs is a really good, they post them, and especially this time of year is when people start looking for graduate assistants. It's just a good opportunity for learning and for growth on the job training. And again, in most instances, it almost guarantees you a job after you finish your graduate degree, which is almost unheard of in, this day and age with people looking for jobs. So definitely, internships as well. If you can partner, I have an intern right now who's just interested in the field, and she comes by and we do walkthroughs and I show her some of the risk management things that are important in the facility and how to manage staff and some of the back of the house things. So if you can find a connection to be able to collaborate with someone for some of those opportunities, very essential to, building your understanding and kind of assisting with determining your real interest in this field.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question, in your opinion, what are some of the best skills that a student can acquire so that they can be competitive for a job like yours? So any classes that they need to take, any workshops that they need to do, things like that.
Man, that's a tough question. I think that let's see. I'm not specifically sure about the classes per se. I will say that skill set wise, just being interested in networking, putting some fillers out there and connecting with people. Just inquiring about things that you have an interest in most instances on campuses or in a lot of organizations. If you take an interest in it, and you just come to someone and you're like, hey, I'm particularly interested in this, most people will take an interest in you. They'll show you, they'll kind of give you some guidance on what you might be interested in. I think that it's just really important to do your research and just figure out exactly what some positions look like. If you get an opportunity to pick someone's brain, I still do it to this day. I'll call other professionals at other universities and I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing X, Y, and Z? Or tell me about this initiative, or what do you think about this? So just again, networking, reaching out, trying to figure out exactly what your real interests are. It's always important to be able to step into that realm and really figure out if you're really interested or if this is more of a niche, or you can really see yourself there. And then also I would just say, if there's an opportunity, like I said, to be an intern or to work in that field, maybe part-time, a couple of days a week, that can always be very beneficial as well.
Thank you. So my second to last question for you. What should sport management professors like myself be teaching students so that we can better prepare them for a career such as yours?
Just, I think, getting an idea of some of the back of the house things, but just really understanding some of the individual entities that do go on in our fields. And I think that I know specifically there sometimes is a misunderstanding between athletics and sport management. The correlation is very, very relative, but I think a lot of, and I even think operationally, a lot of it is the same, but just understanding the differences. I know I've mentored some students who are like, show me some game day stuff. And I'm like, we don't have that over here. So I think just understanding, pointing them in the right direction, allowing them to understand the differences between the two fields, although very similar, very different. I just happen to, as a former student athlete, I have some knowledge in that regard because I've kind of lived it. But yeah, and then also I would just say, you mentioned a tour, which I think is very important for them to be able to see sports facilities and some of those things. Encouraging them to volunteer, encouraging them to check things out and kind of see for themselves. It's important for them to come over to the facilities and like really try stuff out. Go to a game, or wherever their interests lie. Because like I said, I think that they're very, very comparable. But yeah, I think just them understanding some of the ins and outs. And I think that this is helpful because they get kind of a little bit of a insight into what rec from a facility standpoint is for me. But there are other facets. So, there's group X, there's aquatics, there's competitive sports. So there's a lot of other different avenues as well. So if they can understand the differences, I think that that's definitely beneficial.
Okay, thank you. So our last question, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up for today?
Not really. I definitely want to thank you for the opportunity. If you have any students who are interested, I definitely encourage them to reach out to me. Even if it's not specifically facilities, if it's competitive sports, if it is group training or outfit, if it's like really deep on the facility side, I definitely can help point them in the right direction. Um, Either campus, depending on their interests. But we're always here for help. We're always here to support. So if you have any students interested, definitely send them my way.
I'm sure I have lots of students interested. And after they watch this video, don't be surprised about how many emails are in your inbox. So thank you so much for this. Like I said, we really appreciate it. Just you taking out the time and, thanks again.
Thank you.